right sideline. The crowd roars its approval. Curry dribbles around Giannis to the rim. Lob. Jackson Davis for the dunk. A no-look lob by Curry. Slams it down. Doc Rivers has to stop the noise.
It's time for Warriors Wrap-Up. We'll bring you into the locker room and hear from Coach Kerr and the players. Highlights from the game. Warriors Wrap-Up starts now.
I'll tell you what, those boys are playing some basketball. The Golden State Warriors tonight put the beat down in Boston in the rear view mirror, kick it into high gear against the Milwaukee Bucks, and absolutely bludgeon the second seed in the Eastern Conference. Final score 125-190 here at Chase Center this evening. Evan Giddings with you, and this is Warriors Wrap-Up. That is about as convincing, as definitive, and as dominant a victory as the Golden State Warriors have put together against a team that good this season. That was a Milwaukee Bucks team that had won 6 straight coming in, had not been beaten since the All-Star break, had not given up more than 107 points in those 6 games, was the number 1 defense by defensive rating in the last 2 weeks. And of course, this was a Warriors team that we were wondering what happened against Denver the Sunday before last. What happened in Boston on Sunday, losing by 52 points? Well, I think with some rest, with a flight back across the East Coast, after building some chemistry, they get Andrew Wiggins back. They get their full complement and cast of characters. They were fully healthy, not a soul on the injury report for the first time since late November. They put together their best performance of the season against a team with legitimate title aspirations. That's what I took away from this basketball game. The Warriors' most significant win of the season, their best victory, bar none. And they do it against Giannis Antetokounmpo. They do it in Dame's return to the Bay. And they do it with just about everyone pitching in. I mean, this wasn't a 50-point Steph Curry game. This wasn't a game in which Draymond Green put his fingerprints all over. This was a game in which Draymond was in foul trouble. This was a game in which the young players emerged. This was a game in which they got contributions from Kuminga, from Moody, from Trace Jackson Davis, as you heard coming out from the voice of the Golden State Warriors, Tim Roy. They got much-needed contributions from just about every single member of this roster here this evening. Curry had 29, 8, and 5. Seemed like it was pretty quiet. He whipped out a new celebration. Might have been golfing between Boston and Milwaukee because he looked like he was chipping near midcourt when he threw in a 30-footer in the first quarter. Jonathan Kuminga was getting downhill. I'm looking at the bench, which was fantastic. The 25 and unders tonight I thought were beautiful. They look like a group of young core players that's ready to compete in big-time games. And yes, in the grand scheme of things, the Golden State Warriors become now 33-28. They're back into 9th place by winning percentage thanks to a blown 15-point lead or more by the Los Angeles Lakers earlier on today. But this is all of a sudden a team that looks like, standings aside, has found chemistry, has found cohesion, and has found a relationship between themselves among the professionals and the professionalism that a few of these members have demonstrated throughout this season, finally putting all of the extracurriculars, the agendas, it seems, to the side and have come together to play, I think, the most beautiful brand of basketball in a single game that I have seen from Golden State this season. That's what I took away from tonight. That was an all-around fantastic basketball game, and we can get into some of the minor stuff. I think the fact that the Warriors weathered a potential Bucks bludgeoning in that the first few minutes of that second half, I thought was very impressive. I think that's what you have to do in the postseason. You're not going to cake your walk way through games. You're not going to cakewalk your way against good opponents. There's going to be a run. There's going to be a push. And for the Warriors to get out to an early lead, to play well heading into the half, sustaining a couple of big first half performances, a la Giannis, a la Bobby Portis, to take that surge and kind of take the body blows that Milwaukee was inevitably going to throw at them and bounce back with performances and really contributions from all over. If you look at the big individual takeaway, I'm not sure there is one, because to me, I'm just going to go down the roster throughout Warriors wrap-up and give people their due, because I feel like almost every member that contributed tonight deserves it, from the top to the bottom, including the coaching staff, including Steve Kerr, who had some choice words for a few of his young members that I do want to play for you later on here in the post-game show. But I do want to open up the phone lines at 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings with you on Warriors Wrap-Up. Light them up. I want to hear your reaction to what you saw as the Dubs dominate the number 2 seed in the East. Trace Jackson-Davis gets 4 blocks, 3 of them on Giannis. Stephen Curry throws in 29 points as a table setter. Draymond Green has foul trouble. And this is where, just looking at the beginning of this game, there was a tone setting. I thought, I don't know if it's strength in numbers, and I got maybe a little play on that later on in the program that I want to throw at the audience and see how they feel about it. But from the moment that Draymond Green got his second foul, it was kind of a questionable call. Giannis took it to him. I thought there was contact on the body, but as far as the ball, I thought there was mostly nylon and leather. But Draymond gets his second foul, gets a technical. And you're wondering at that point, okay, the Warriors lead by 4, but where this game is going to go, we don't know. Looney's first off the bench. That was something that popped into my mind. Was it be Trace Jackson-Davis? Or are we going to see Sharge, who was out of the rotation completely tonight? And it was Kevon Looney, who contributed probably the best 6 minutes of his season off the bench for the Golden State Warriors. He had a short corner jump shot that we haven't seen in what seems like eons. He was getting up the floor. He had a dunk, which was, I can't remember the last time I saw Kevon Looney dunk in transition. And he gave the Warriors a quality 6 minutes and kind of softened a potential swing set or set of possessions that I thought Milwaukee could have taken advantage of. During that time, Curry gets a couple of layups. He hits a deep 3. He whips out the golf swing. CP3 comes in off the bench and steady Eddie across his 20 minutes. Klay Thompson hits his first 2 threes. This was a Warriors attack that, from a firepower perspective, dropped in 12 threes of their 20 makes in the first half alone. And it was interesting, like at the half, was talking to Marcus Thompson of The Athletic, and he was rocking his Oakland Tech Letterman in honor of Oakland Tech beating Oakland High last night in the section playoffs. And of course, he told me he wanted to go talk to Dane about it, but Dame Dalla, Damian Lillard, who of course went to Oakland, but I was just talking to him at the half, and he's like, this 20-point lead, I'm not really sure about it, essentially, is what he was saying. And I'm with him. I felt like, even though I had felt like they put the 50-point blowout from Boston behind them, no lead is safe with Golden State. We've known that from watching this season. And if they had, blown a 20-point lead, I don't know how many of us would be necessarily surprised. But the way that they softened that initial spurt, I think it was Milwaukee that went on a 19-5 run at the beginning of the second half, was by inserting some size, was by getting contributions from players that you don't necessarily rely on. It wasn't the starters. It was the bench. It was that second unit led by Trace Jackson-Davis, contributing with Curry, contributing with Chris Paul, that really, I thought, set the tone on the defensive side of the floor. And while I thought that Jonathan Kuminga needed to be the second scorer for this team, and I think that's an equation that can work moving down the line, and he did with 20 points, lockout 3 on bank, lock of the game, by the way. But I think that defensively, this is where the Warriors have a viable path. It is through their defense, and it just has me thinking about the 2021-22 season. And I'm not ready to go ahead and say the Warriors are title contenders, but the way that they operated on the defensive end of the court does give you hope against a team that has firepower like Milwaukee, and then using that to kind of spur what they got in transition offensively. They got into the paint against a team that, again, had not allowed more than 107 points to very good opponents, including the Clippers, including the Timberwolves, over the last 6 games before the All-Star break. But defensively, the Warriors locked in during that second half. They allowed just 32 second-half points. They got a season-high 14 blocks, and they made Giannis field them, who's one of the best interior attackers, if not the best in the league. I thought they were good on shooters. I believe Milwaukee shot less than 30% from three-point range tonight. They were closing out. They were switching. They were communicating. The chemistry was palpable inside of Chase Center this evening, and coming off a performance which was just a dead duck in Boston, I thought was all the more impressive. So, again, 888-957-9570 is the number. Let's start with one of our favorites, Drew Down out in Tracy. Drew Down, my man, how you doing? What's up? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up.
Hey, good evening, Evan. Doing a hell of a job, man. Love you on the Willard and Divs, bro. You're killing it over there too. Just want to start with that.
Thanks,
but
man.
I thought it was a great win for the Dubs against a quote unquote contender. I know there's been a lot of talk after the Boston game how this, team, can't beat good teams. At the end of the day, the wins count the same, but I guess for those, for those naysayers, good win against a, contender. I thought Steph came out, played great. He had a couple turnovers that, were a little rough, but came out scoring. JK came out scoring. I thought he was great on both ends of the floor. He had, 2 steals, 3 blocks. I thought the one big negative was he kind of overhelped on Antetokounmpo, left Dame wide open for a 3. Dame cashed it. Kerr immediately called a timeout, and you could read his lips. It was like, hey, what are you doing? But other than that, I thought Kuminga was great tonight, and I agree. I thought the bench was huge. I thought Saric had really been, not really effective, ever since, Chris Paul was out with an injury. So I'm glad that Kerr went away from him. Trace Jackson-Davis, man, especially in that third quarter, I think the lead got down to at least 6 or 8 at some point. He came in that one, sequence where he had 2 blocks on Antetokounmpo and came down and got a lob. He brings that role that this team that they need, as a shot blocker, changes shots. He's a lob threat. I love Looney. I thought Looney was pretty solid tonight, but when Looney sets the screen and he rolls to the rim, it's like, he converts sometimes, but it's like it's not that threat that Davis is. Davis is a vertical threat. He can definitely catch some lobs, and I love the way he played tonight. He was so big against Antetokounmpo at the rim, so I'm really happy to see Trace Jackson-Davis, because that third quarter was rough. They started out rough. I'm sure a lot of people were like, here we go again, blowing a big lead. But I thought Trace came in, really helped stabilize the game. And, the fourth quarter, Dre hit a couple big threes. Steph Curry hit a couple big, back-breaking threes to really solidify the win. But overall, my takeaways were, I think that this team is finally healthy. Feels like they're gelling. The rotations kind of coming into picture. Clay, CP off the bench with Trace Jackson-Davis. It seems like this, everybody's kind of settling into their role a little bit. CP had 9 assists off the bench. Clay was efficient. I don't know that he scored much, in the second half, but regardless, he was definitely efficient scoring in his minutes. GP2, same thing. He was efficient 4-4. I don't know that he scored a lot in the second half, but regardless, CP2 was efficient. Moody, solid D. The thing that stands out was that sequence in the start the fourth quarter where he picked Lillard's pocket, came down, got a dunk. He was a plus 22, even if the box score stats, points don't really show it. I thought Moody was great on defense. We held the Bucks to 38% from the floor, 28% from 3, out-rebounded them 50-36. So, other than that little, hiccup in the third quarter, I thought it was a pretty dominant performance from the Warriors. Wiggins, as expected, was a little rusty. I thought his defense was still really good. His offense was, left a little bit to be desired, but it seemed like Kerr kind of managed his minutes tonight, even if he wasn't maybe on the official minutes restriction. But other than that, I thought everybody who played major minutes definitely contributed, to the game. So, and I feel like nobody played huge minutes. Obviously, we got another game against Chicago. So, big win for the Warriors. I thought, a great way to start this off. And the Lakers lost tonight. So, let's see if we can keep stacking wins and see how high this team can really climb. I'm not really big on, predicting where they'll finish. I think let's just take it one game at a time and see if we can just keep stacking wins together. Thanks a lot, Evan.
Yeah, thanks, Jordan. Good stuff. I mean, I think you highlighted something that was also very important about this game. You're right. They suppressed their minutes. Curry only played 31 minutes in this game. There was not a single Warrior not named Steph that played more than 26 minutes. And when you got a back-to-back tomorrow against, the Bulls certainly aren't Milwaukee, but if you have to pretty much put in heavy legs in this kind of game, that makes that effort a lot more difficult. And that's really how you put together a run. Like, you take care of opponents when you have a chance to, whether they're better than you in terms of record, whether they're hot. If you have a chance to put away an opponent, I think that's what's been so frustrating about the Warriors all season, is that they've given us glimpses of whether it's, sustained greatness or kind of a segment of greatness from, a quarter to a half, but then not being able to close out games. And I think that's what crept into everyone's mind during that third period. They only scored 15 points, and it was really all Steph. Like, if you look at the first 5 minutes of that quarter, I think the Warriors took 10 shots, 6 of them were from 3, and the only 2 makes they had were on a drive by Curry and a 3 by Curry. They could not get anyone else to put the ball in the hoop. Meanwhile, Milwaukee was getting downhill. They were using those misses to trigger transition. And then once I thought that Kerr went to kind of a second unit, but found some consistency on the defensive side and stabilized, everything opened up for him. So I thought the Warriors locking in defensively in that second half was maybe even more important than when they did offensively. They held Milwaukee to 9 points in the fourth quarter. And I realized they threw in the towel 5.5 left because they also got games to look ahead to, and they were not going to win that game. But that's the kind of small spurt that the Warriors have not been able to sustain for 4 periods throughout the majority of this season. They haven't had those kind of 3 to 4 minute stretches where they can go on a 12-3 run, where they can go on a 15-5 run, where they can grab points, where they can steal quarters and steal possessions. They have not been able to do that consistently against good teams, against potentially great teams. Like, again, Milwaukee, they were missing Chris Middleton tonight. He's missed the last 11 games. They've still won 6 in a row without him. This was a Milwaukee team that I thought in the first half actually played pretty well. Like, I didn't think they were great, but the fact that they could look up at the scoreboard and see themselves down by 10 despite giving up 78 points and allowing the Warriors to make 12 of 20 on their threes, and only really Bobby Portis was doing much offensively, I thought they were in a pretty good spot. So again, you felt like that run was coming for Milwaukee, as well as Golden State not being able to sustain the ridiculous shooting that they had. But that's where attacking the paint comes into play. And that's why before the game, I felt like the key to this game was going to be how well the Warriors, who admittedly did shoot it very well from beyond the arc. They were 19 of 39, but they only made 7 threes in the second half. They were able to get offense by getting into the paint, getting back, and then playing defense. It wasn't as much of a shootout nearly in the second half as it was in the first. So the Warriors, I thought, defensively, and there were a couple players that set the tone for me. Number one, and Drew and I kind of touched on, I thought Moses Moody and his on-ball defense on someone like Damian Lillard was extremely impressive. Being able to pick his pocket, 15 seconds into the half, take it coast to coast, or into the fourth quarter, taking it coast to coast. He almost got him a second time in that fourth quarter, by the way, too. But Moses Moody, I thought he played kind of Wiggins-like on-ball defense. And I guess if there was something to nitpick about one of the members, throughout this game, it would be Wiggins, but that's more of a receipt that I'm keeping in the back of my mind because it's his first game back. He hasn't played in, I think, 9 days. He's obviously going through something, a very serious familial matter at home that apparently is not completely resolved, so his mind might not be completely with the team right now. And still, even in 14 minutes, 3 points, he didn't play very well. Kerr went away from him. Like, Kerr was not afraid to mix in 11 different men in the first quarter of the game, and he did it pretty masterfully, having Looney play 6 minutes. By the way, Looney didn't play a single second beyond that 6-minute spurt, and that's why I was curious to see how the rotation would look and why I believed at the half that, number one, we wouldn't see Looney, but officially, Trayce Jackson-Davis has usurped both Looney as well as, I guess you could throw Saric in there, but for the backup 5 minutes. That's TJD's spot now. And Kerr even said as much after the game, saying we got to get this guy minutes and get him ready for the postseason because of what he can do on both ends of the floor. As a rim runner, as a rim protector, he still has and is going to make some rookie mistakes. Like, there was a sequence in the first half where I think Chris Paul was looking for him. He was open, didn't have his head around, turned into a turnover on the other end, then fouls a three-point shooter. That was a bad sequence, and that might have been the only bad sequence of his night because of everything that he did in the third quarter was a huge reason, in my opinion, that they kind of cushioned the Milwaukee surge. And Trayce Jackson-Davis might have played the best game of his young career. I know he had a big game against Boston in December. He's had double-double performances, but in terms of impacting winning across now 19 minutes in this game against the second seed in the East, who's got size, who's got Giannis, who's got Brook Lopez, like, it feels weird to say, but for periods of time during that third quarter, Trayce Jackson-Davis neutralized Giannis Antetokounmpo. That does not happen very often, and I don't believe that that's something that's going to, like, if it, they play 10 times, Giannis is probably going to get the better of someone like TJD 8 times out of 10, but the fact that he could do what he did And even at points in the second half where you saw Giannis, after getting blocked 3 times by TJD, drive into the paint, and you could tell that he was thinking about attacking the 10. That was something we did not see from Giannis in the first half. I believe he took, I think it was 7 of his 9 free throws in the first half. Like, he was getting downhill. He was getting the free throw line. And in the second half, I thought because of TJD's presence, as well as the Warriors as a group defensively, did a really nice job of kind of caging him. The way that you hear Nick Bosa talk about caging Jalen Hurts, I thought the Warriors caged Giannis Antetokounmpo. They forced him either into difficult shots outside of the restricted area, or they just let him take long 2s or 3s. And he made 1 3. That's something you could live with. But they turned Giannis into someone that was either... like they forced him to make the choice. And I thought that really the only time that Giannis hurt the Warriors was in that third quarter. And it was with his scoring, no doubt. But you look at the box score from the first half to the end of the third quarter. He was rebounding more. He was passing more. I think he had 4 assists in the third quarter alone. Giannis was doing what he wanted to by penetrating, and once TJD came into the game and kind of closed the paint area away from him, or at least made him think about it before attacking the 10, I thought that Giannis was not nearly the same player that he was. And of course, he's coming off an Achilles injury, and he didn't play against the Clippers, and I'm sure he wasn't at 100%, but I thought it was very, very impressive what Trayce Jackson-Davis did to one of not the game's best. All right, let's. We got a lot of callers here. I apologize. 888-957-9570 is the number. Let's get out to Coach Duran in San Francisco if he's still there. Coach Duran, what's up? You're on Warriors Wrap-Up. How are you?
Hey, Evan. How's it going?
Good, man. What's up?
Oh, man, I just got done serving tenders and fries at City Bistro. I smell like a piece of chicken, but, hey, the Warriors pulled through today. That was incredible. A massive win. We steamrolled them. 35 points, a gigantic rebound game from the Boston Crusher the other day. Man, our guys were legit and on point today. I'm really positive, excited, and happy as the days goes on. I think for a first round, whoever plays us Warriors are going to give them some problems. Yeah, I'm really juiced that the Warriors came through today. Let's go, Dub Nation, all the way.
Thanks, Coach Duran. No, I think, look, that's the type of game that absolutely gives you hope. Am I ready to go ahead and say that the Warriors are title contenders just because they beat one at home in a regular season game? No. But to their credit, the Warriors had not given us that kind of game so far this season. Like, they've had impressive wins, and they've been able to get over, especially in this recent stretch. You know, they beat Phoenix by a point. Curry's last-second three-pointer was incredible. They beat a Phoenix team that at the time, I believe, had won. It was either 14-15 or 13-15. They're playing great basketball, but that's a close game. That's a tight victory. This game was not in question. This game was not as lopsided as the Boston defeat was on Sunday, but in many ways down the stretch it felt the same because Milwaukee threw its best punch at the beginning of the second half, got it down to 6 from once it was 22, and then the Warriors pushed it right back up to 20 entering and at the beginning of the fourth quarter. That's the kind of counterpunch that playoff teams that have a chance to win a round or multiple rounds can make. That's the kind of resiliency that we've been waiting to see from Golden State throughout this season, and that's why it's been so concerning when they have not been able to hold these 20-point or 15-plus point leads. Tonight, that I'm sure crept into everyone's mind, but they did not let it faze them, and that to me is a kind of mini switch that looking ahead, they won't necessarily get a chance to test until probably it'll be next Wednesday in Dallas. That's the next best opponent that they play. Not to say that you can overlook Chicago and then San Antonio on a home and home, but Dallas is the next big test for Golden State. Okay, they passed the Milwaukee test. They're whole. They are healthy. They have all of their pieces. Steve Kerr looked like he knows how to use those pieces tonight. How do they measure up? Can they take care of business against Chicago? Can they get both? Well, certainly one of the games against San Antonio, but can they get both against a team that has Wembanyama? And can they take that momentum then into Dallas and keep this momentum rolling? This is a team that at the beginning of February was 3 and then 4 games below 500. Right now, they are 5 games above 500, and looking at the standings, They are in 9th place by winning percentage. They are a half game back of Dallas, and they are 1.5 games out of 7th place. That is not insignificant. They have made a lot of ground up in a short period of time, and it's another reason why tonight's win was huge. All right, let's get out to Fremont. Galileo. I don't know if you're staring at stars out there in Fremont, my man. What's up, Galileo? How are you?
What's up, Evan? Thanks for my call. Coming back from the game, I really want to give some credit to Draymond Green. I felt like he was blocking everything at the rim if Kuminga wasn't there. I also want to give credit to Moody. I knew it was our night when he took Lillard's cookies at half court. A lot of good stuff. I was scared when we were down 6-0. I'm like, fuck, they're bigger than us at every position. When you look, they're starting Jay Crowder. They have specialists like Pat Beverly to try to make it a tough night for Curry. Last thing I'll say, I want to give a lot of credit to GP2. I felt like he took Dame out of rhythm a bit. Thanks.
Yeah, appreciate that, Gala. I think there might have been a 4-letter word in there. Thank you, Sterling. Sterling's on top of it all back in there. Yeah, little 4-letter word. We can't have that, Galileo. But point taken. No, you're right. The defense was incredible. Look, they blocked. Well, I guess the official count was 13 blocks, but TJD had 4 of them. Kuminga had 3 of them. Draymond had 2 of them, and then you're right. The on-ball defense from Moses Moody was very impressive. He got Damian Lillard. I thought he almost got him a second time in the second half. And the Warriors, and this is where, like, having a big is not necessarily the same as having defensive versatility. Like, I was having this conversation before the game, right around Warriors Live. We were out at Ballast Point. I was with our guy Jesse Moore, works in promotions for Odyssey, great dude, and we were talking about how they don't really have bigs. Like, I mean, even Trace Jackson Davis, I think he might be listed as 6'10", he might be 6'9". I mean, their tallest player might be Saric or Looney, but those guys are kind of right now out of the rotation. Even Looney's 6'9", right? So they don't have traditional size. They don't have a 7-footer like Brook Lopez. But you saw how much of a dinosaur they made Brook Lopez look like tonight. That guy was lumbering up and down the court, and I hate to come down on the dude because I've liked him a lot in the past, but he's 35 years old now. That's a guy that in the playoffs, and I know he maybe 2 years ago was a first-team All-League defender, but now he looks slow, and he looks like someone that can be taken advantage of, who sits in the paint, who's going to allow and can't really switch in and close out on shooters. I've watched the Bucks a decent amount this year. Defensively, they're not the same team, and I think a big reason why is because Brook Lopez has taken a big step backwards as a defender. The Warriors went at him tonight. They put him in pick and rolls. I thought they tried to draw him out of the paint, a place that he's not comfortable in being. And he also wasn't giving the Bucks much offensively. I don't know if he had a point through the first half. So the kind of 7-foot center that a lot of people are clamoring for is not as effective unless they're also versatile. And that's where the Warriors' bigs right now, with Draymond Green, of course, manning the 5, but also now Trace Jackson Davis emerging as a kind of high-rising shot blocker. That is where the Warriors, I think, have a reason to feel like they can hold up on the interior against bigger teams. Now, against a team like Denver, and no one's going to be able to handle Jokic. The Lakers might pose some size problems if they have to face in the play-in, but I'm not necessarily worried about them. It would be for other reasons. Oklahoma City doesn't offer a lot of size. Minnesota has got some size. They got multiple 7-footers. So I guess, to me, the fact that we're seeing the Warriors now with not one but 2 capable defenders at the 5 position, the second, of course, being Trace Jackson Davis, that gives me a lot of faith that they can sustainably play defense at a high level and keep teams out of the paint. All right, we got through 3 there. Let's get out to Mark, who's was at Chase Center. I'm assuming you went to the game, Mark, but our guy Mark in Millbrae typically. What's up, Mark? You're on Warriors Wrap Up with Evan. How are you?
Hey, what's up? Yeah, I wanted to see how the Warriors would come out tonight, coming off that rough Boston loss against a great Milwaukee team who, besides Boston, has been playing really great basketball, especially Giannis and even Dame really turned it on. And this was, top to bottom, probably their best performance, especially at home, where they've been struggling all year, which is out of the norm for them, and they look like reverted back to the form Love the way they set the tempo early coming out. Curry was his usual incredible self. Kuminga was outstanding once again. But to me, the guys that stood out beside Draymond, even showing off his three-point range there, which really had K-Center rocking. But to me, Trey Jackson-Davis continually showing again why he's effectively replaced Saric out of the rotation. This kid going up against an MVP like Giannis and one of the most dominant players in the league wasn't intimidated at all. He really took it to them. I really loved that second half when Milwaukee really made their run to cut into the lead there. And it looked like, oh, damn it, are the Warriors going to blow another huge lead at home? And luckily, he was one of the reasons why they didn't. As soon as they got it done with 6 or 7, I mean, the Warriors, with Trey Jackson-Davis really making a couple of those defensive plays there, really fired up the fellas, and they really went on the run and effectively ended the game there late in the third quarter. I just love the energy they brought tonight. This is what we need to see, especially at Chase Center, where, we haven't unfortunately been able to see too often, unlike the road where they've been a lot more consistent, which is way out of the norm for them. So I hope tonight was a showing against an elite team that they can play with anybody at home and not to let their guard down. And when they play like that, to me, they can beat anybody. And they've already shown they've beaten Boston already. They have the Nuggets on the road, so unfortunately they put them, and they beat a couple other good teams like Minnesota and so on and so forth. So you got a team like Chicago who you should beat, but don't let your guard down, because they're one of those teams, even though they're inconsistent, DeRozan gets hot, they can make it a tough game for you. So these next couple of games against Chicago and Spurs should be wins at home. Don't let your guard down, and we're back to form. You play like you are. You're in a playoff push. You can't. There's no room for error in these last 20-plus games. So hopefully they got the memo tonight. Outstanding win. Tip of the cap to the starters bench and the defense, which shut down the highly powered Bucks. Thanks for the time, man.
No doubt. Appreciate the call, Mark. Thank you, as always. Just checking our YouTube chat, powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Yeah, I see a double margin. I'm not trying to get too over my head with the Chicago Bulls. A lot of people might feel like that's a trap game. This is what I would say about the Bulls that would help the Warriors. And again, I think kind of combines with Mark's point about keeping guys fresh. Again, the Warriors did not play a single player more than 31 minutes. You look at what Chicago had to do tonight to win in Utah, which is not necessarily the easiest place to play, but Utah's in full tank mode. They are not trying to win basketball games. You look at Kobe White, who's a very good young point guard. He played 42 minutes tonight. DeMar DeRozan, who is, I think, 34 years old. He played 38 minutes tonight. Caruso played 35. Dosunmu played 36 minutes for Chicago. They pretty much had an 8-man rotation to get that victory. So, this is a Chicago team that's coming into Chase Center and that's going to be tired. And the Warriors, meanwhile, are on a back-to-back, but they're about as fresh as they could be. And I'm also with you. I see a Jimbo. The Bucks' 6-game winning streak got hit by the San Francisco Tsunami. The Tsunami Poppy just play in Philadelphia, but I like that idea that San Francisco and the Warriors coming back from Boston again. I felt the road trip was a success. You got 3 out of 4. You got 3 valuable victories that now with a win tonight, which is not, it wasn't to me a gravy game. I looked at Sunday as a gravy game. If you could go a perfect 4-0 on the road, that is extremely difficult to do, especially when you got to play a team like Boston. But you come back home after a couple of days of rest. Curry clearly hit the links, and Milwaukee was a team that you could beat, that you could show that you can play up against. And I think also the Warriors now starting to build some consistency, some chemistry here at home. That's huge for them as well. From the Comcast business text line, from the 510, this is pretty funny. 2022, we had Kevon Olajuwon. In 2024, we have Trace Jackson Duncan. Actually, I did think about Tim Duncan tonight, and it wasn't because of Trace Jackson Davis. It was because of Giannis Antetokounmpo at the free throw line. Now, I'm not old enough to have watched Karl Malone, who I have read is someone that would stand at the stripe and he would talk to himself and go through all these different mechanisms, and before he would shoot a free throw, it'd take like 10 seconds. Giannis Antetokounmpo with Tim Duncan, those are the guys that take the longest time at the free throw line that I've ever seen in my life. And Tim Duncan would just sit there and kind of shrug, and he would look a little, I don't know, malaised and dazed. Giannis just takes his freaking time. This is actually one thing that I'd say. So you have 10 seconds from the time that you catch the ball that you have to shoot the ball, correct? Okay. From the time that the referee is ready to give the free throw shooter the ball, you have 10 seconds. Because what Giannis does is before the official throws him the ball, he sits there and practices his free throw form, which so far this year has resulted in a sub 70% shooting, but that's neither here nor there. And then Giannis will take the ball and then sit for approximately 10 seconds, and the crowd is chanting, 1, 2, 3. I saw Jerome Robinson on the Warriors bench tonight that was counting seconds, like officials do on inbounds plays, just floating his hand out saying 1, 2, 3, 4. Klay Thompson was chiming in at different times. That is what I would employ at the free throw line. For the moment that the official is ready to give you the ball, you got 10 seconds. Shoot it or take a mulligan. But Giannis Antetokounmpo might have wasted 3 full minutes of our life at the free throw line tonight by trying to get an extra couple of breaths in. So that's what I would have to say about that. All right, 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings with you on Warriors Wrap-Up after the Golden State Warriors grab their best win of the season. They beat the Milwaukee Bucks by bludgeoning them 125-90, a 35-point victory, surely their best margin of victory against a team among the top 3. In fact, they now have season splits with Boston, with Milwaukee, the 2 top teams in the Eastern Conference. Can't say the same for the West, but Minnesota's got a few up on them. OKC, they've only grabbed 1 from. Of course, they're winless against Denver, but they have shown themselves to be able to best the best in the East, and that is not invaluable. But again, want to get out to the phone lines here, clean up. If we still have Alan Alameda, want to get out to him and give him a shot here on Warriors Wrap-Up. What's going on, Al? How are you?
Hey, thank you for taking my call.
No problem.
Yes, I just want to take a call on this game tonight. Hey, I would just say this game tonight, I would say it's a whole team effort, okay? I would give it to Trace Jackson, 1, and Draymond Green, his first half, his physicality and his defense, okay? And Jackson took over, and I would give it to Steve Kerr, how he juggled the lineup tonight. Mm-hmm. He was just pushing the right button, taking the right person out and putting him in there. There was a time that we had 3 guards there. Okay, we got CP3, you got Kerr, and you got Gary Payton too. That's a small lineup. And the way he did it, I think, is the scoring point. And Antetokounmpo, they got him in a box in a way there that he was getting tired. And Trace Jackson there, he was just getting him. He blocked him like 2 times, I think. The bottom line there, we did good defense on Milwaukee, but Steve Kerr, I would give you the credit tonight here. He was the engineer on this game tonight. After getting blown out by 50 points tonight, we won by 35. I'm not going to say that's a fluke. That was a good game. They had the little squad, except the other player they have is on bench or he's hurt. So thank you for the effort tonight. Okay, and thank you, Steve Kerr. That was a good coaching. Have a nice evening.
You too, Al. No, I think that's a great point. Yeah, and I don't know if I've come down Steve Kerr's road a whole lot this year, but I've been critical of him when he's made mistakes, and I think you got to give a guy his flowers when he pretty much pitches a perfect game. Like there was, there was a 3 or 4 guard lineup during the Bucks run in the beginning of that second half, and the paint opened up a little bit, but I thought the way that Kerr managed specifically the first half was beautiful. And again, I think the key was getting, but also trusting that you would get productive minutes from someone like Kevon Looney. Kerr played 11 people in the first quarter alone, from my recollection of this game, and throughout, he really had himself pretty much a 10-man rotation. I know that, a billion players got into the game and he emptied the bench down the stretch there, but in addition to the starters, Klay Thompson played 21 minutes. Chris Paul played 20 minutes. Trayce Jackson played 19. Moody played 21. GP2 played 16. All of those guys got ample minutes and were productive. And I think that Steve Kerr, not only trusting his guys and pushing the buttons at the right time, but also communicating before the game that, look, we're at full strength. Rotations are going to be not necessarily up for grabs, but we're trying to find what we have for the playoffs. Eventually you're going to have to get from 12 down to 11, down to 10, down to 9, and some games down to 8. And I thought he communicated and verbalized this very well. And you saw it. Darius Saric is out of the rotation officially. I think that if Draymond Green does not get 2 personal fouls in the first quarter, we don't see Kevon Looney tonight. He does not play. Because if you take those 6 minutes and you give them to Draymond, he's at about 30. That's probably where Draymond Green should be playing in a regular season game at this point in his career. And he also prioritized Trayce Jackson-Davis, who played 19 minutes in this game. I think that was a choice. Trayce Jackson-Davis did not come in until 2:30 in the first quarter because that's where he was supposed to. I also thought Kerr pulled the plug quickly on Andrew Wiggins multiple times in this game. Some of it may have had to do with his conditioning. I think he also just recognized that Wiggins didn't have it tonight. Moses Moody had it tonight, and Moses Moody has had it during the 4 games that he has started for Andrew Wiggins outside of Boston because no one had it that day. But Moses has proved that he deserves minutes, he deserves time, and he is in my opinion, the backup 3 to Wiggins. If Wiggins is not going to be someone that is effective or he's going to float and he's going to be up and down, Moody is Mr. Stay Ready. He is going to get that opportunity. He didn't need to take a 3 tonight, but all of that shooting that he can give you is gravy to me if he can prove that he's an on-ball defender, maybe not as at high of a level as Wiggins, but if he can pick the pocket of Damian Lillard, if he can stay in front of some of these guards, he's going to just earn more and more playing time. I also thought Klay Thompson was effective yet again. 4 assists off the bench for Klay. That's not insignificant. Chris Paul, ho-hum, 6 points, 9 assists, a plus 14 in 20 minutes. He was steady as they come. The team turned it over 14 times, but nobody had more than 3. I thought they took care of the basketball. They had 22 assists in the first half. They had 37 as a team. No one had more than 10. Chris Paul led the way with 9. That's a team that is moving the ball with consistency crisply. And really, the only time that I thought that they lacked in their passing was probably Draymond Green. He was the biggest culprit of it, but everyone at the beginning of that second half I thought struggled to move the ball as well as they did throughout the remainder of the game. So again, they took the punch from Milwaukee. I thought they operated with a counterpunch, and I thought that they were very, very good tonight. All right, let's step aside for a minute here, take a break. Come back. We'll get you the Steve Kerr post-game sound after this commercial break, but make sure to light up the phone lines if you want. I see you on the Comcast Business text line from the 562. Warriors have put the rest of the West on notice. They're in playoff mode. I see you on the YouTube chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Yada Amin, one of my favorite Bay Area phrases, by the way. TJD, hands down, is tonight's MVP. I got more on TJD. I got more on the 25 and youngers coming up on the other side, something I think that has been emerging for Golden State that is the key to a potential deep run and continued success here in the regular season. All of that will be on the other side, as well as your calls. 888-957-9570 is the number. Evan Giddings with you, back with more on Warriors Wrap-Up after this on 95.7 The Game.
Navien tankless water heaters, the proven leader in condensing technology. Request a Navien because you deserve the best in endless hot water delivery. Learn about Navien's condensing tankless water heaters and find a Navien contractor at tanklessmadesimple.com.
Count on Navien.
Some people bring joy wherever they go, some whenever they go. Mark Twain found humor all around. Never argue with a fool. Onlookers may not be able to tell the difference. Humor. Pass It On from PassItOn.com.
Since first opening its doors in 1964, Fremont Bank has approached banking with a simple idea in mind. Growth comes one customer at a time. You see, while some institutions might be on the lookout for the next big thing, we like to think that's what you'll be. And when you achieve great things, it leads to success throughout the community. It also allows us to continue our tradition of giving back to the region.
His midcourt, deep three on the way. Splash! And you hear it. There's the official Tolbert sign of victory. The opening of the can. Steph has night-night. Tolbert has the crack of an open can.
Mine tastes better.
Now back to Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game.
Well, you heard Tim Roy, Tom Tolbert on the call for every single home game. And, of course, Tim Roy, the voice of the Golden State Warriors here. This is Warriors Wrap-Up on 95.7 The Game. Evan Giddings with you live from Chase Center after the Warriors just beat down the Bucks. They returned the Boston beating with one of their own. Maybe not as large, 52 points, but it was a 35-point win against the number 2 team in the Eastern Conference, who had been unbeaten since the All-Star break, was the number 1 defense in the association after the All-Star break, and even did some of it without Giannis Antetokounmpo, who was back in tonight off his Achilles injury. Final score 125-90. They allow 32 points in the second half after posting 78 points, knocking down 12 threes in the first half. They get contributions from 4 different young players: Kuminga, Moody, Trace Jackson-Davis, as well as Brandon Pajemski. Might have flown under the radar, but still grabbed 7 rebounds, was connecting, hit a couple of threes. I thought he was good in this game. And, of course, Curry, 10 of 18 from the floor, bouncing back after missing all 9 threes against Boston with 29 points, 6 threes, also had 8 rebounds and 5 assists for the Chef. Draymond Green, 12 points. By the way, hit 2 threes in the fourth quarter, had not hit a single fourth quarter three to this point in the season. He knocked down back-to-back triples in the fourth quarter, and you bet that he let the entire Milwaukee bench know about it. But to me, before we get back to the phone lines at 888-957-9570, I do want to mention the hardest worker of the game, brought to you by Alameda County Sheriff's Office, who works hard to serve the community. If you're looking for a career in law enforcement, learn more about job opportunities at joinacso.com. To me, it's Trace Jackson-Davis. And I think it's also duly deserved, and Kerr understands that the minutes that he got tonight were on purpose, and there will be more coming his way. Kerr, after the game, said we need to get him more minutes to get him ready for the postseason. And in 19 minutes today, against a good team, a really good team, he was a plus 20 in 19 minutes, had 15 points, 7 rebounds, and 4 blocks, 3 of them on Giannis Antetokounmpo. None more important, of course, than the sequence that I thought really ignited the Warriors after taking the first big body blow by the Bucks in that third quarter, and that was Giannis screaming down the lane, TJD meeting him at the summit, knocking the ball down, Giannis grabbing it underneath, trying to go up again for a reverse, TJD tossing it, and then running down the floor with Steph Curry on a no-look lob to the right side, grabbing the alley-oop and stuffing it with both hands. That brought Chase Center to its feet in a way that, quite honestly, the only other time that I heard it tonight, real quickly, was when they honored Bob Myers. And that was another part in a dynamic of this game that might have flown under the radar. But Bob Myers, former president of the Golden State Warriors, a major piece and a major part of the 4 championships, along with drafting players that are on the floor in this game. You think about Jonathan Kuminga. You think about Moses Moody. Draymond Green, I believe, was in the first draft class that Bob Myers was a part of. Kevon Looney, of course. Klay Thompson might have been right before. I can't quite recall, but nonetheless, there was a ton of Bob Myers picks, a ton of Bob Myers friends, close cohorts, workers, relationships, all of that on the floor, and I thought it was a beautiful way that they honored him tonight. They had his 3 daughters at the game that all had signs for their dad, who was on the call. He was the color analyst for ESPN courtside this evening. Didn't have a chance to listen to the broadcast, but I think he does a pretty good job. But anyways, his daughters presented him, and they had a video tribute for him. Players spoke. Draymond and Steph were out near midcourt to, I think, rally kind of the standing O that Myers is deserving of. When you think of the Golden State Warriors and you think of their dynasty, a lot of teams, I guess, the general manager or front office doesn't come first, or the president, but Bob Myers is going to be, his name is going to be a synonymous with this dynasty, and it's deserved because he is a big, big part of it. And I know that in recent memory, a lot of people have, I don't know, besmirched his name is the right way to put it, but, associated him with some of the failures of the young players. And I don't think that's fair, because where Bob Myers, along with Steve Kerr and the rest of the ownership group and front office, has been so fantastic for the Warriors, has been the commerce of relationships, to take a line from Game of Thrones, the commerce of relationships. And, to me, I think that Bob Myers and what he accomplished and helped the Warriors accomplish cannot be understated. Draymond Green spent about 4 minutes talking about Bob alone and how he's going to have a name in the rafters. I don't know if they do that for general managers, but surely when whatever team gets inducted into the Warriors Hall of Fame, into their circle of ceremonies, whatever you want to call it, Bob Myers is going to be front and center, or his name is going to be right up there, right behind the Currys, the Greens, the Durants, the Iguodalas, the Thompsons, the Kerrs. Bob Myers, in my opinion, is right up there with those guys because he was a part of being the architect for this organization. So it's really cool to see them honor him at midcourt during one of the timeouts. And that was in addition to the TJD sequence, probably the most lively that Chase Center got tonight. And I was really glad that he got to do that and honor that, along with his daughters. He was emotional. He was tearful. And it was, I think, really well done by both Golden State. And I'm sure that Bob Myers was really appreciative of that because he's a great guy. He's come on the station a ton. He's been very generous with his time. He's generous with his money. He's generous with just about everyone that I have had the brief interactions, with both Myers, but also people that have come into contact with him, not on the team or in the organization. Everyone has had great things to say about him. So shout out to Bob Myers, tip of the cap to one of the best pieces of this dynastic run. All right, I promised we'd get out to the phone lines. If Jonathan's still there, Sterling, let's get him on here on Warriors Wrap Up with Evan Giddings after the Warriors defeat the Bucks. Jonathan, my man, how are you? What's going on?
Hey, Evan. I'm much better. This was what I've been looking for those past couple games. A buck 25 to 90 and it was beautiful. A little concerning that third quarter, and especially when they cut it to single digits. But fourth quarter, I think we held them to 9 points, and the route was on, and you could start to relax a little bit. And 20-point halftime lead. They had a great first quarter. And everybody contributed tonight. I agree. I think this is their best performance of the season. This is an incredible bounce back, not only from the Celtics, but certainly the Nuggets game and how miserable I was after that game, and just everything in general. The key now is going to be, can they finish this? I know they got the Spurs on Saturday as well. I'll be down the street at Giants Fan Fest, and I still have a hockey game remaining. So I unfortunately won't be back, but I got tomorrow night to finish the season, and it's Steve Kerr reunion night. So as far as the Bulls are concerned, they did great on Decky's night with the Hawks, but then they had a letdown against the Kings. So I'm asking, can you finish this, beat Chicago, have a winning homestand? I already have a winning season, but I just want one more and end my year right, and then get rolling towards a run towards the playoffs. I just want to see them finish this back to back the right way compared to how it went in January, and that'll be my swan song. But don't let me say goodbye and head to baseball on a loss. So let's finish this the right way, and just very, very proud of the effort tonight, especially coming off Denver and Boston, and really enjoyed it. And it's fitting that Antetokounmpo played. We weren't sure if he was going to. They need to be prepared for things like that, and so I'm glad that they took care of business regardless. So on to the Chicago Bulls. What a way to finish, and let's see if they can get one more tomorrow.
Thanks, Jonathan. Appreciate the call. No, I think you're right. Yeah, I think we all hope that we could wrap up the back-to-back. Not that tonight isn't significant if you lose tomorrow, but we're definitely going to be salty going into the weekend if you lose to the Chicago Bulls, who barely scraped past the Utah Jazz, who the Warriors, I guess, nearly lost to in Utah as well, but also drubbed. So, no, you want to beat Chicago not because they're the Bulls, but because you have a legitimate chance to climb very quickly in the Western Conference. You look at Golden State right now, they're 9.5 out of first, but they're in 9th place. They're a half game back of 8th. They're 1.5 games out of 7th, and they're 2.5 games out of not being in the play-in tournament. That's not insignificant. Now, you got 21 games left, and I don't think that people maybe always wrap their minds around how difficult it is to jump in the standings. Like, for example, the Warriors were, I think, in 12th place before this whole run happened. Now, they were 4 games below 500, but before they went on this now, was it 14-8 stretch over the last 18? You know, they're 10 games above 500, for example, over the last month and a week, so about 5 or 6 weeks. They have moved 3 spots, and they've been one of the best teams in the NBA. It's really hard to just jump teams in the immediacy. And the fact that they've done it so quickly has been impressive, but they're going to have to continue to play at this level and stack these wins in order to give themselves a chance to get out of the play-in tournament. I think still the 7-8 seed to me is the most probable or likely outcome. But then again, Dallas has lost 3 in a row. The Sacramento is 5-5 in their last 10. So is Phoenix. Those teams are coming back down to earth a little bit. So the Warriors, before inevitably, I think, you're always going to run into a cold patch. I'm not just saying that they're just going to run off, 20 out of 25, or what is it, 18 of their last 22. But if you go 16-6, how far can that get you? To me, I think the 7 and the 8 seed is a perfect place to be for Golden State because it gives you a great chance to get into play, and you can make a run. And as long as you're playing good and to great basketball like they did tonight, I think you give yourself a greatest chance of any. You'd love to get to the 6th. There's no doubt about that. But I think if this Warriors team plays with the chemistry and cohesion we saw this evening, there was no reason to believe that there isn't a first-round upset in their sights, because either way, like, even if you get out of the play-in, for example, that'll stop you from having to play 2 or 1 elimination games, but you're still going to get one of the top 4. That's not changing. You're facing Minnesota, OKC, Denver, or LA, regardless of how far you climb. All 4 of those teams are very good. So for me, the Warriors, it's all about themselves and how they're playing, but also not necessarily beating the Bulls, but just beating teams that they should. Chicago is 2 games below 500. The Warriors have cleaned up against those kinds of teams. They can continue to get these wins, stack these wins, and at the end of the day, see where they end up in a very good Western Conference that might feature 5 to 6 teams that have 50 wins. So it's an up year for the West. It's been, in terms of win-loss record, a very good year for the Western Conference. The Warriors could finish with 48 or 49 wins and be a play-in team, whereas last year they won 44 games and they were a 6 seed. So that's the difference that a year makes. But right now, the Warriors are in a good spot. So again, 888-957-9570 is the number. Before I get into some of those younger players, I do want to listen to Steve Kerr, if we have that, Sterling. Steve Kerr, after the game in which his team put together, I would say, their best performance of the season. It was a statement game against the second-seeded Milwaukee Bucks. And if we have that, this is what Steve Kerr had to say.
Getting Trace in there obviously worked. What was the thinking, and what did you see from him in this?
Well, we're going to need Loon in the playoffs. There's going to be matchups where we need him. I know I can trust him, but we got to get Trace more minutes to get him ready for the playoffs, because he needs reps. He needs more time. You can see what he did tonight. He has an ability to finish and to block shots that gives us a different look. And so we decided to ramp up his minutes and slide Moses kind of into a bigger role as well. And those guys were both fantastic tonight, I thought.
On Trace again, he came in, and after he came in, I mean, obviously the entire energy changed, but how much of it was just the things he was doing and the energy he brought into the paint, because Giannis was attacking the rim like crazy for a while there?
Well, I mean, Trace is he's so bouncy, and he's got long arms. He can really protect the rim and get off the floor quickly, and so again, it just gives us a different look. Giannis is so hard to guard. So it was good to kind of just change it up on Giannis after, Draymond guarded him for a little bit, Loon as well. And then a little change of pace with Trace with his athleticism and rim protection. So it takes a village to guard that guy. And, we needed everybody for sure.
You went 11 deep. Is that something you feel like you're comfortable continuing to do, considering how deep this rotation is, or are you thinking you're going to have to kind of pare it back a little bit?
Yeah, it'll more than likely be 10. It's hard to play 11. I know we've been playing 11, but if we're going to ramp Trace's minutes up, then it's more likely going to be 10, and we'll just try to mix and match. But we feel like we found some combinations. We've got we're 3/4 of the way through with the season, so we've got a pretty big sample size of the different combinations out there. And so I think we're in a good spot now where we're able to put together the starting group, which has done a great job here the last month or so, and a second group now that we're fully healthy with a lot of really talented players. And you saw that tonight. The bench was terrific.
Kind of following up on that, how impactful can that bench be? I mean, if, like you said, it's the first time you've had everybody in a long time. These last 21 games, how important can that be as you jostle for position?
Yeah, it's really huge because we've got a very different look off the bench than our starting group. And, we come in with Chris and Clay. That's a, Hall of Fame backcourt off the bench. That's pretty good luxury. And then, adding Trace to that mix gives Chris a lob threat, and, Moses spaces the floor. BP's another playmaker with that group that started the second and the fourth. And so we liked that lineup quite a bit, and they really came through for us.
That's Steve Kerr, head coach of the Golden State Warriors, after they bludgeoned the Bucks 125 to 90. A lot to unpack from that. And I think first and foremost, you have to give Steve Kerr credit for how he navigated the first half, specifically with the 11 men, getting around Draymond's foul trouble, utilizing players, but also getting the best out of some of his vets. You got to give credit to Kevon Looney. I think he was really good in this game, coming in off the bench. Obviously, he mentioned Chris Paul and Klay Thompson, who, were solid in this game. I think both of them hit their first 2 threes when the Warriors made 12 in the first half, but they didn't force anything. Chris Paul rarely does, but you didn't see Klay Thompson force anything. You saw him continue to connect with the other members of the bench in terms of passing, 4 assists, 0 turnovers from Klay. He didn't go for the home run ball. He didn't need to. And I thought that the bench just kind of continued what the tone was from the starters in some of those scenarios. I also thought Jonathan Kuminga was very good in this game of getting inside, attacking the lane, opening things up for shooters in the first half. JK was good. And I thought Kerr's decision, for example, to keep Wiggins at the minutes that he was, he clearly didn't look 100%. And he's coming off of a serious family issue. He's got things he's got to deal with, and so it's next man up. Moses Moody was right there. He's been next man up over the previous 4 games on the road trip. And this kind of contributes to these, this, I think, fair and appropriate but natural association with the strength in numbers team, right? I think that's where everyone's mind goes when they see, an 11-man rotation. You think about the strength in numbers. Steph Curry only played 31 minutes tonight. He was efficient as hell. He had 29 points on 18 shots. But for me, where I'm seeing this team differentiate is because those Warriors teams in 15 and 16 and even going back to 14, they were led by stars, but those stars were younger. You look at the core, which are still here, right? Curry, Draymond, and Klay. 10 years ago or 9 years ago, those players were in their mid-20s. They were young guys that were leading the way. The strength in numbers was from veteran players. You think about the Barbosas, the Livingstons, the Spates. I'm missing a few, but obviously players off the bench that had been around, that had experience, and were able to bring it and complement the youthful and budding superstardom that we now know as 4-time champions and a dynastic core. What we're seeing here in Golden State this year, and maybe more so, none more so than tonight, instead of strength in numbers, to me, we're seeing strength in the youngers. We're seeing strength in the 25 and youngers from this team that are aiding an aging core, that are supplanting some of the fall off from legends, from 4-time champions or 3-time championship type players. We're seeing strength in youngers from Jonathan Kuminga, who's 21 years old. Pajemski's 21. Moody's 21. Trace Jackson-Davis just turned 24, but he's a rookie. You look at what the strength in youngers did tonight. Moody was a plus 22. TJD, who had 4 blocks, and I thought really kind of put a charge into that counterpunch that Milwaukee threw at the beginning of the second half. He was a plus 20. Got those 3 blocks on Giannis, 2 of which on 1 possession. Kuminga was a plus 12. Pajemski was a plus 11. You look at those 4 players tonight. They were combined 22 for 36, 49 points of the 125, but they had 21 of the 50 rebounds. They had 8 of the 13 blocks. Kuminga also had 3 of them. They made hustle plays. They made smart plays. They played with consistency. And those 25 and youngers, to me, not only raised the floor of this, of their young group, but they raised the floor of this team. And they're able to push the older players. They're able to keep their minutes suppressed so that they can play with efficiency, so that Curry can do his thing in 31 minutes and remain fresh, that Draymond Green only has to play 25 minutes. I don't know if Draymond has played more than 30 minutes in a game since he's come back over the last now 18 contests. Chris Paul's off the bench playing 20 to 25. Klay Thompson doing the same. If those young players that are 25 and younger, the rookies and third-year players that have impacted winning at a consistent level now here in 2024, they can maintain that, this becomes a very dangerous team. I don't know how far overall they're going to go in the postseason, but it gets me thinking about the future and where this team can go. And so instead of strength in numbers, to me, I'm looking at a strength in youngers type of team for Golden State. And that's, to me, why tonight stood out against a Milwaukee team that had the best defense since the All-Star break, that had not given up more than 107 points in 6 straight wins. And with Giannis back in the lineup, those younger players were up to the task. It was very fun to watch, and I can't wait to see how they continue to grow, because it feels like they're going to keep rolling. I feel like, and that's where, to me, where this, I don't know, where this team is different. It's where they feel different from last year's group that was coming off a championship. It even feels different than the championship team. That championship team did have a lot of veterans, and that might be the difference in winning or not winning when it comes to postseason time. But for a group of young guys tonight to do what they did against Milwaukee, I thought was outstanding. And look, they got to win tomorrow against Chicago. You got to pick up wins against the San Antonios, but it just gets you thinking about the future of this franchise and this organization as they have their aging core. It's not as if you have to close the book on these guys, because they're now getting help. And the Warriors have begun to win games. They've moved on from the suspensions, from the injuries. This was the first game the Warriors were whole since the end of November. And they put together this performance coming off of 52-point freaking beatdown in Boston. They got abused in Beantown. And they took it, they washed it. Is anyone even thinking about that game at the end of this contest against Milwaukee? Me? My mind only went there because it was such a stark contrast, an ultimate 50-50 turnaround, a 180 flip from Sunday to now Wednesday. And I'm very excited to see where it goes. So, I think everyone is feeling optimistic at this standpoint. Again, does it make the Warriors an automatic title contender because they beat one at home? No, but I think that is a great step in the right direction, and it is the most impressive win this season. And I don't think that's disputable. I feel like the Warriors have begun and really have found an identity. They're playing with chemistry, and that, to me, is where they can differentiate themselves from teams in the West and some of their peers. You look at the teams that, they're in a group with right now, Los Angeles. I couldn't tell you the identity of the Lakers. Dallas is a one-on-one team. They pretty much play with a pick-your-poison type of offense, whether it's Luka, whether it's Kyrie. Those guys are going to will them to victory or not. Sacramento is a team to me that is missing a piece and defensively struggles, and they're so up and down. I know the Warriors have been up and down throughout the season, but again, you look at what they've done. The only teams that they have lost to since the beginning of February, the Atlanta loss in overtime was bad, but the Clippers, Denver, and Boston, those are really damn good basketball teams, and they just beat a damn good basketball team tonight. So you wonder in terms of contention, in terms of, looking like a great team, have they turned the corner yet? This is an excellent starting point for them and a potential point and a receipt that we can look back on and say, well, that's when the Warriors not only began to build and play with consistency and win games, but that's when they turned the corner by beating good teams. Up and coming, you got some tough games on the road. You got Dallas, you got Los Angeles. You're going to be going to Minnesota, Miami, Orlando. You're going to have Dallas 3 more times. You got some big tests left on your schedule, but you could make the case that Milwaukee, who was 20 games above 500 coming into this game, outside of Minnesota, is the best team that the Warriors will face for the remainder of the 2023-24 season before they get to the playoffs. And they beat the crap out of the Bucks at home. They beat them by 35 points. That's not insignificant. And this was not like Milwaukee was set up for a scheduled loss, in my opinion, the way that the Warriors were on Sunday. And the Warriors going into Boston, it was the last game of a road trip. They'd played 5 in 8 days. They were down 2 starters, and they were going in against the hottest team in the NBA, who is firing on an offensive clip that is in a historic pace. They don't have to see Boston again until the NBA Finals if they get there. And that, I'm not saying they will, but that would be the next time that they'd have to face them. Milwaukee's the best team in terms of record left on their schedule, and they beat them by 35. So from that standpoint, you can, I believe, feel optimistic about the Warriors' promises heading down the stretch. You could also look back and say, well, look at Denver. You lost to them 4 times this year. You've gotten beaten by Minnesota. You've only got 1 win against OKC. The Clippers have gotten the best of you a few times. So I understand there's kind of the yin and yang of it, but if the Warriors are playing their best basketball, this is a statement type of game, and they did it on national television. They did it with Bob Myers back in the house. They did it coming off their worst defeat of the season, which they got absolutely embarrassed in front of the nation. And I feel like things are now balanced in Golden State. Again, it doesn't mean they're automatically just going to rattle off 15 in a row, run the table, and get to another championship. But this is a team that is cooking with some hot grease right now, and they showed it against Milwaukee. That Boston was something that they could wash, that they could get away from, and they got right back to basics. They did it with young players. They did it with their aging core. They did it with everyone on the roster, including the head coach and the coaching staff, even up to the front office. Right now, Mike Dunleavy looks like a freaking genius because the 2 picks that he has hit on in his very first season as general manager are playing large minutes. Brandon Podziemski's in the starting lineup. Trace Jackson-Davis, you just heard Steve Kerr say, needs to play more to get ready for the playoffs. This is a front office, coaching staff, and roster, along with, of course, ownership that appears to be united right now. And that is, I think, what provides a lot of optimism for the remainder of this season. All right, so that'll just about wrap it up here. I appreciate you letting me go off on a tangent there. I don't know where my mind goes sometimes, but, again, after a win like this, I feel like this is a place where we can all kind of kick back, enjoy what has been the best win of the season. And I know, as someone who's invested in this team, both, of course, financially, but also someone who's emotionally invested, who grew up as a Warriors fan, who's now gets a chance to cover the team for 95-7, the game, the flagship. Yeah, I want to see this team succeed. I think there's a lot of great guys in that locker room. I think there's a lot of great guys in this organization, and it's a lot of fun to see them putting it together over the course of 82 in what has been an extremely compelling season. So, it's not going to wash away some of the bad losses from the beginning of the year, but it certainly is a place to go from here. It's a great jumping off point as they have 21 games left. They move closer towards a potential play-in or play-off berth, and I'm telling you, man, these Golden State Warriors are must-watch television each and every night, and I appreciate you tuning in every single post game here on Warriors Wrap Up. I will be off for the remainder of the weekend. Mark Grandy will have you for pre and post tomorrow, as well as on Saturday for San Antonio. I'll be looking from afar, but I got a trip that I got set up, so I'll be off for the remainder of the week. But I really appreciate you letting me break this down after the Dubs dominate the 2-seeded Bucks at home with great contributions from 1 through 15 all the way up to the coaching staff as they beat the Bucks. Final score 125-90. Big thank you to our YouTube chat and Twitch chat powered by First NorCal Credit Union. Big thank you to the Comcast Business Text Line. A big thank you to everyone that has called in, that continues to call in each and every time we set this thing up. I got lucky that, of course, I'm reacting to this game as opposed to Sunday. Very different tone. But I'd like to think I call it like I see it, and you all are a big part of that. So also big thank you to Sterling Bennett, our network coordinator back in the 95.7 The Game studios. Big thank you to everyone helping produce this bad boy, cutting up sound, getting us loaded for what is sure to be a loaded day tomorrow, even though I am off. I look forward to listening from afar. 6 a.m. morning roast, 10 a.m. Steiny and Guru, as well as Willard and Dibbs at 2 p.m., 6 to 6. Fantastic content coming your way tomorrow, 95.7 The Game. Do not miss it, whether you're listening on the Odyssey app, watching on Twitch and YouTube, you're listening on the old FM dial. We appreciate you, as that'll put a bow on this edition of Warriors Wrap Up. My name is Evan Giddings, one more time saying so long from Chase Center, where the Warriors improve to... right now, 9th place in the Western Conference, 33-28. They beat the Bucks. Final score 125-90. Thank you all. Enjoy the rest of your evening, and we'll talk to you next time. Have a good one.
Without the ones like you, who work tirelessly to keep things running, everything would suddenly stop. Hospitals, factories, schools, and power plants, they all depend